Anyways, we have Leah on the podcast. I'm so happy you're here. I've wanted you to come on for so long.
So happy to be here.
Your book's coming
Thank you
out.
for making the trip.
Of course.
The book is so good, you guys. I have devoured it.
Thank you.
Really want to start at the beginning.
Okay.
Because first of all, you're so open about how you were expelled from school.
Mm-hmm.
And you say something in here that's really interesting. And I feel like Michael will appreciate this because he was a horrible student. You say that you feel like the school system expels people and it's not the right avenue.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think that clearly if a kid is, look, obviously if someone's violent or someone, you know what I mean? That's a little different story. But like, for instance, in my case, I just needed some extra attention and like care. And instead of being expelled, which I was expelled twice.
What were the offenses?
Okay, the first offense was really nothing. The first offense was like, basically, I was at this very prestigious all-girl private school in New York. We were there on partial financial aid. We didn't have a famous last name. My class in general was not great. We were all misbehaving, but instead they pointed at me. They pinned it on me and were like, "You need to go."
So you were the scapegoat.
I was scapegoated. Sorry, I'm like eating this mint.
Is it okay that is the reason that they did that because there was so many rich, wealthy parents?
They couldn't throw out the girls whose parents were donating $500,000 a year, obviously.
Don't want to get that wing taken down.
Exactly. Yeah, right.
And who are you going to school with? Are you talking about like socialites? Are you talking
Yes.
Like
socialites, like the biggest like last names. Yes.
And they were doing bad shit too.
Yeah.
And they just pinned it on you.
Totally.
So then your parents rip you out of New York City, which Michael and I talk about this all the time. Like, when is it okay to pull a kid out of school where they're not traumatized?
Well, my daughter, we were just visiting Connecticut the other day and we were taking a walk down the street and my daughter goes, "I hate this place." And I go, "Me too."
Why? And I think Connecticut looks so pretty. I've never been.
Oh my God. No, because my daughter's growing up in New York and we were just taking a walk. Like, we went up there for Easter, even though I'm a Jew now, as you might know. But so we're taking a walk down Main Street and she's just like, "This is like the worst. This is so boring." Like, I'm like, "Now you understand what happened to me." And she's like, "I do."
You seem like a really colorful, eclectic, open-minded person. To be moved from New York City to Connecticut was probably traumatic.
It was so traumatic. And my parents will not own it. They're like, a lot of kids move. A lot of kids would be happy to move to Connecticut. I'm like, "Are you crazy?" It was the most depressing thing. I was like, we went from our view, like on our balcony, you could see the Empire State Building. Now I'm living in like a barn and the big thing in the town is the $2 movie theater. And I'm supposed to be happy. I'm used to going to clubs. Like,
how old are you at this point when you moved to Connecticut?
I was about to be 14.
And you're used to going to clubs at 14 years old.
Yeah.
That's wild too.
I know, that is crazy.
I mean, looking back on that, are you like, "Oh my God,
yeah,
because
my daughter is about to turn 15 and she's never been in a club.
And she lives in Connecticut?
No, we live in Manhattan.
Oh.
She lives in Manhattan now, and she took her to Connecticut to like drive by.
To visit my parents because they still live there. And
I was
my
going to
daughter,
say, if the daughter hasn't been to a club, then maybe we're going to Connecticut.
Yeah, move there. Yeah.
You want to move to Amish country or like...
Well, no, she's about 14, 15. I'm going to rip her out of school and we're going to go become Amish. So it'll be...
Listen, honestly, my daughter is such a well-adjusted, grounded kid that is just smart about things. She doesn't, like, I was crazy, but like somehow she is not like me. Thank God.
Let me ask you this though. Are you a parent that is, do you talk openly to your daughter about the things you used to do?
Now I do, because she's at that age. Of course, it wasn't age appropriate when she was like 8 to be like, "I did meth," you know what I mean? But when she was 12, I talked to her about alcoholism because I relapsed, you know? Before I started drinking, and I talked to her and was like, "I'm going to start drinking again. You've never seen me drink. I think I can do it in a responsible way now." And she was like crying. And then I stopped.
Well, the reason I asked you is I had a father that I guess many would consider at the time, he was a 60s guy, so a crazy guy, but he always was very vocal with me, told me like everything he did, what he experienced. And I remember going through life, and whenever those experiences, whatever I would personally encounter them, I was like, "Oh, okay." I kind of had the context, so I never went too crazy because he always talked to me about it, which is why I think...
Yeah, and my parents, they didn't tell us shit. They didn't tell us anything.
Because I think that generation's way of dealing with things was to sweep it under the rug like it never happened. And it was almost a shame thing. And this generation, I think, is like, this is what I did. I'm owning it. Here's how I got out of it. Here's the tools. This is what it's like.
Meanwhile, my whole family, I come from like a long line of alcoholics and drug addicts, but I didn't know that. And also I didn't know that like I had family that had depression. Like that was a game changer for me. Cause I thought I was like weird and fucked up. I'm like, no, this is genetic.
You talk about how you found that out in rehab.
Yes.
So what was your first drug? Do you remember? Was it in New York City?
Yeah, it was at Roseland Ball. Well, I mean, like weed, that doesn't count.
No, I'm talking about more
Hard
hardcore.
drugs.
Yeah.
I was at my first rave at Roseland Ballroom and I sniffed speed. And
Did you know it was speed?
Yeah. And I took like 2 hits of acid. It was crazy.
What is a rave like? I've never been.
I mean, they were the best things in the world.
Like what?
Like it just like it was just like it was the best. I was addicted to them. I was at a rave every single night if I could be.
I mean, it sounds fun.
What year was this?
That was 96.
Okay.
Yeah. That was 96. It was like just such an iconic era, like in New York City also, right? Like it was just so dope. The music, like everything was so good. Such good music came out that year. Like, just everything about the 90s was so good.
I remember 60 Minutes doing a special on ecstasy.
I remember that.
And it scared the fuck out of me. And it was like around that time and it was all about raves.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I knew I think they had kids on there too. Like they had some ravers that were on there. And I think I knew one of them, this girl who was from Connecticut actually.
So the second that you try the drug, is it immediate? You're like, this is fun.
I was like addicted to everything. The music, the style of dressing, like just all of it. It was a culture. And I'm like, this is where I belong. I found my people. And it was such a great escape from what I was feeling, which was like misery in Connecticut.
So you get to Connecticut, you go to school, and then you end up in rehab.
Yeah.
And I remember at our school, there was a lot of girls that went to rehab and I was always so intrigued. I want to know what rehab is like at 15 years old. Like from what your day to day is to the other kids that are there. Did it help? Like tell us like really in depth.
There was so much drama. Like this one bitch stole my fucking Liquid Sky t-shirt. Oh my God. Like I'll never forget it. And ended up making out with the guy that I liked. And she was not cute at all. I was so fucking pissed off. I had a crush on one of the counselors. He had tattoos and he had like a syringe tattoo from when he was a junkie, like going into his arm. But then he had all these like AA tattoos too. It was like so weird. My roommate was bulimic and would throw up in the shower. It was so annoying. It was disgusting. I had no sympathy for her at the time. It was a lot of groups. Like I cried a lot. We did a lot of ping pong. We did rock climbing, group therapy. We would go off site to like AA meetings. And there was a lot of like, I remember one kid, we were watching a movie. I think it was like, I want to say it was Train Spotting, but I doubt they would show us that at rehab. But it was something that triggered him and he took a chair and like threw it at the window, but it didn't go through the window because the windows were probably like bulletproof or something. And then later I found out he was waiting on his AIDS test to come back because he was like an intravenous like drug user, but it was negative. But he shared about that too. It was intense. Like a lot of kids had been sexually abused and they talked about it, like luckily that's not part of my story, but anything and everything. Like one girl, the second time when I went back to Karen, I was in extended care with her for like 3 months and she was having sex with her brother. I mean, there was a lot of, yeah. And actually one of the counselors I don't even know how to say this. Like he was like touching us like, but we kind of, it was crazy. Like I want to say he grabbed our pussy, but I don't want to make a Trump reference, but like
you can say
he literally grabbed our vaginas like as we were, it was nuts.
I think a lot of I don't want to say all, but there is a lot of, maybe not a lot. There are counselors that go into and prey on
Yeah.
young women. We've heard this a lot on the show of
Mhm.
counselors getting into the
Yeah.
business to prey on young girls. So
I've never even said that before, but I almost forgot that it had happened until just now. But
well, you almost bury it.
What was the catalyst to finally get you into rehab at that point? Or is this like, hey, your parents turned around?
this was the third. That was like the third rehab. I think I was just like, I couldn't. Everyone had. This is like after senior year. Everyone had gone off to college. I was like, because my friends were like good at like my best friends, like they were really good at like doing acid and then like going home and going to sleep afterwards. I'd be like, no, let's keep going for like weeks or days, like for a week, straight. I'd be gone. And I'm like, I need help. And I finally said to my parents, like, okay, now I need to go to rehab. You sent me to rehab before, but now I need to go.
The first time you went to rehab, you said your parents came for the family weekend and it was so gnarly for them that your
They
dad
couldn't
had
even
to
come.
leave.
Yeah, he couldn't. He attended the first day and then he couldn't come back
What did
because
they do?
he has his own trauma.
Right.
They talk about their family history because his mother was an alcoholic. You know what I mean?
So it was bringing stuff up.
Yeah, it was too much for him.
I mean, I can't imagine as a parent, like it's almost like you have to put your own needs aside and just focus on your kid, which is so hard too.
Yeah,
Brings up a lot.
a lot.
So your third time in rehab, what happened after that? Did you stay sober for a while?
I did. I stayed sober for 9 months, but that's because I was basically institutionalized those 9 months because I was at Karen Foundation for 3 months because I stayed there for the extended care program. Then from there, my parents wouldn't let me come back home. Like I was like, okay, I've been here for 90 days. I'm ready to come back to Connecticut and like get a job and live a normal life. Maybe I'll go to college. I'll help with Daniel and Sarah. That's my brother and sister. I had a list of things I would do, like feed the cats, like walk the dogs. Like, I'm going to help. I'm going to be a good person. I swear. They were like, you're not coming home. That's it.
And what was the main reason? It was like because you were such a problem, or they didn't want you to influence the other kids? Or
I think it was like they were like, there's no way that after 3 months, after what you've been doing, that you're fine after just 3 months. Like you need longer term treatment. So they found a program that was 2 years. And I was like, there's no way I can do two years of being in a program. But I had no choice because or else where would I live? So I went to this therapeutic community, which was run by nuns. Okay. Years later, I ended up building a house in that town without even realizing it, which is so full circle. But I go and then I left after a week. I was the only girl there who wasn't court mandated. And I took a Greyhound bus back to New York City and slept on my friend's couch and then found a halfway house to live in. So I lived in a halfway house for then 3 months. So it was a total of 9 months sobriety. And then right before 9/11, I had gotten out of the halfway house. I was living with my grandmother back in the city and I relapsed.
I got a weird like Housewives question. When you
Sure.
go through all of this stuff and then you go on the Housewives and it's maybe more trivial, do you kind of like look at this and be like, this is when they're fighting over what you guys are
Yeah.
fighting over things and you've been through these types of experiences? Is it
Right.
like a weird kind of,
You know what?
maybe you're just like you've been through such hard shit that you're like, this is
Yeah.
bullshit.
I think that like that's an interest. I probably should look at it like that, but I also feel like this stuff happened to me so long ago. It's a past life.
Okay.
Like we were just talking before, right? About like how cathartic it was like to write this book because this is stuff I haven't like I do carry it with me subconsciously and maybe in a negative way, but I don't actively think about this.
That makes sense. Oh, I look at my childhood as
Yeah,
a, as
so
a past
long
life. That makes total
It's so
sense.
long
You're
ago.
almost detached from it.
I'm 40 years old with a 15. I'm 39, but I'm almost 40. I have like an almost 15-year-old. Like I have a totally different life. But reliving it, I've had to relive it by writing it. And then it was hard for my mom to read that book because she knew I was out. But I talked in like I mean, listen, I could have put 100 more war stories in there about going to crack houses in Newark. I mean, like just the craziest shit that I did. That's not what this book is, But just for my mother to read about some of the things of me getting high and stories and stuff, it was a lot for her. It was a hard time.
You talk about in the book how you were getting tested by probation officers.
Randy, yeah, my mom. He saved my life in a lot of ways. But sorry to interrupt you, but
No, go ahead.
my mother loved him. If it wasn't for him, because if I didn't have him, they signed me over to the state of Connecticut.
Your parents did.
My parents did. And he was my probation officer, and he was my guardian, basically. If I fucked up, I would go to juvie. So I was like and then when I was doing drugs, I started, using other people's urine to pass
Yes,
the
that's what I
test.
wanted to ask you about. So describe how that even comes about and how you even have this idea and how this even happens.
I mean, I don't know how I had the idea. I was just like, I need clean urine. So like I had friends at school that I knew had clean urine. And I wore huge jeans because I was a raver. So I would put it in an actual, like one of those little pea cup things, or a vial that I would get at like science class and put it in my sock and bring it into the bathroom with me.
So no one's watching you go to the bathroom
No.
when you do the pee test.
No.
If you could advise parents or I don't know, even probation officers, how would you handle this looking back and having perspective?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to give probation officers advice.
Yeah, don't put a
Fuck
snitch.
that
Don't be a
shit.
snitch, Lauren. You know that comedian Joey
Snitches get
Diaz?
stitches.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
I'm still from that generation.
Lauren,
Like,
you're a
fuck
big tattletale.
that.
I think Lauren's a big tattletale.
No, I am a tattletale only when it
You're
comes
one of the people that got us both kicked out of school all the time.
No, I
Oh
was
my God.
not.
Man,
you
Are
snitch or
you
what?
kidding? I'm
You
not
snitch?
a snitch at all.
Maybe.
I want to know what to do if Zaz is hiding pee.
I mean, look, like, with my daughter, like, yeah, like I know, like, God forbid I have to drug test her one day. I'm standing over her, watching her.
You know that comedian Joey Diaz? Have you ever seen him or heard of
That
him?
sounds familiar. I know.
He
Yeah,
used
I've
to
heard
have
of
this
him.
probation officer. He told this story. This is a random one. It's going to freak you out. But he had a probation officer who used to watch him pee because he had to take all these drug tests. He actually went to prison at one point.
Mhm.
And he would put this little pouch in the foreskin of his penis with clean urine on it.
Shut up.
And then he would pull it, and that's how he would do it.
Hold on. How big is the foreskin of his penis?
I've never seen it, but he would put clean urine
He's
in
gonna
there.
have to Instagram that.
That
He
I
tells the
want to.
story.
Yeah, that is. I don't know. That's
okay,
crazy.
so it wasn't in the foreskin of like
It
your
wasn't
vagina.
it wasn't like hiding under one of the lips.
Okay. You never went to juvie.
I didn't like put it up my pussy.
I mean, listen.
But like a lot of people do stuff like that. Obviously,
I'm sure. Like,
isn't it called boofing?
I don't know. It's like
Yeah,
a
it's
tampon. Put it up your
boofing.
asshole.
Well, I'm always amazed at like human ingenuity when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like people, like even if you watch these documentaries on how people get things in and out of prisons,
Oh,
and
yeah.
oh my, it's crazy. Like we can get
They use
crafty.
every orifice.
You would get really crafty. I feel like.
Yeah, I'm circumcised though, so I'd have to.
Thank
I'd
you
have to-
for
I'd have to figure
announcing
something
that
else
to
out.
everybody. Oh, so Joey Diaz isn't circumcised.
must
That's
not
how
be.
he can do
Yeah,
it.
he tells the story. He actually ended up having an affair with his probation. It's a whole thing, but you have to listen.
Oh,
you have
that's
to
kinda
listen.
hot.
Go on YouTube and look it up. It's hilarious.
So inappropriate.
Okay.
Hot.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so what happens when the probation officer finds out that you're using?
He never found out.
He never found out.
No. And then once I was 16, I think I was a little older than 16 because my mom tricked me. They both tricked me and kept me on probation longer than I should have been on. Once it was my 16th birthday, I should have been off. And I can't, yeah, I think I stayed on for like a few more months. But
You actually were on, or they just told you were on?
they just told
Oh, they
me I
told you,
was.
okay.
Yeah, to scare me.
So when you're at 19, when your parents say you're out, you're on your own, you're
Mhm.
in a halfway house, is that different than a rehab?
Yeah, so that's more like a transitional living house. So you can go get a job. Like I got a job at the Guest store in Soho, and you still have like groups, but it's like a couple times a week, and it's at night. They do drug test you there. There's a curfew.
Were you committed to being sober?
Yeah,
And at what point do you meet Rob in this?
probably not until like a year after I got out of that halfway house.
And when you meet Rob for the first time, are you like, "Hi, I'm Leah. I'm an addict," or was that not even like an identity?
No, that wasn't even
not an identity.
That wasn't even a thing.
It wasn't even like nothing.
Like everybody was like like everyone was getting fucked up.
It wasn't a big deal.
Wasn't a big deal. He probably liked that I was kind of a bad girl
I bet he did.
Yeah.
He loved it.
because you know what? This is like kind of bad. I didn't put it in the book, but he was dating a girl for 4 years when we met. But we fell in love right away. And I said, we were like, it was like love at first sight. And then
Where
he
were you
told-
guys? You got to tell us the story.
So we met at Max Fish, which is like this really like famous skate, like downtown art bar, like artist bar. And I was with 2 friends, and I was like, oh my God, like, who is that guy? And then I met him again at A-Life, which I talk about in the book. And then I saw him again, which I talk about in the book, at this bar that was like empty and it was just us there. And I was like, hi. And then he wouldn't give me his number. He took mine. And my cell phone like hadn't been paid. So like I didn't, and then cell phones were very new at this point too. But he called my landline and like left a voicemail of whatever. Was that what it is? A voice message? What was on the fucking answering machine? This is back in the day. I mean, this is like weird, like fucking crazy. But and finally we had a date, and then he told me he had a fucking girlfriend, and I was like, dude, I'm not like doing that. Like, no way. I was like, when you break up with her, I probably saw him a few more times. Like it was like over a month stretch. And then finally I said, no, I can't do this. Like I really am into you. So like when you break up with her, you let me know. And the next day he called me. I was getting ready to like go out and party. It was a Sunday night. And I'm like, he's calling me. And my friend was like, answer the phone. And I answered, and he was like, I told her. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, I can't believe he's choosing me over her, because she had her shit together. She was a nice girl, but he wanted the bad girl.
When you say you're going out partying, at this point, are you using or are you going out sober?
I'm using.
So you're.
I had already, once I got out of that halfway house, right before 9/11, I relapsed. And then I was like, 2 days later, 9/11 happens. And I'm like, definitely I'm getting fucked up. Because it was like in the city at that time, it was like this nihilistic almost way of living and partying. Like, we don't know if we have tomorrow. Like, it was like a very dark, weird time. It was fun because the clubs were so good, but like the towers were gone. There was like holes, 2 big holes in the ground. Like, it was just like a weird time in New York. When we were partying, like we were like gonna live forever.
Where were you on 9/11?
I was at my grandmother's apartment.
And what was that like being?
God, it was so fucking crazy. It was nuts. First of all, my friend Jimmy, rest in peace, he called my landline. My grandmother woke me up. So me and my grandmother lived in a studio apartment, and I slept on the bed and she slept in the reclining chair only because she loved the reclining chair. I would have let her sleep in the bed. You know, she likes to watch TV and fall asleep watching TV. So, and this is my grandmother, not my grandmother who passed away while we were filming this past season on RHONY, but my other grandmother who passed away years ago. She's like, Leah, you know, the phone is for you. And he's like, Leah, wake up. Like, they're attacking us. Like, the world's ending. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And my grandmother had her remote control, and she was like, why aren't my shows on? What is this? And she kept pressing. Every channel was the same thing. And I looked, and it was just the towers with one hole in it, you know? And I'm like, oh, it must have been, I didn't even think anything. I was like, it must have been a drunken helicopter that flew into it. I didn't realize the size of it, you know, the enormity. And then my mom came by, because my mom was in the city that day, and she's like, come grocery shopping with me. Who goes grocery shopping when this happens? By that time, the second plane hit. So I go downstairs, and I'm on 24th Street and 8th Avenue, and it's a beautiful day, like a gorgeous, gorgeous day. Everyone always says that, but it was just an amazing, like a beautiful weather. Everyone on the street is standing still. Can you imagine New York City standing still, looking south on 8th Avenue at the towers? And I looked, and there they were, with 2 giant holes with just smoke billowing out of them. And I'm like, you know, 30 blocks up, but you can see straight down. I go into the grocery store, and I'm only there for 15 minutes in the grocery store with my mother. And I come out, and all of a sudden I'm walking back towards 8th Avenue. It's like, you know, just 20 feet right there. And everyone is now not looking up anymore. Everyone's hands their heads are in their hands. And I'm like, what's going on? Some people are on the floor, and everyone's crying and screaming. And I look, and the fucking buildings are gone. They're gone. It was crazy.
I remember when that happened. We were all the way in California watching on the TV, and I don't think people like that didn't have the proximity of someone like yourself. It's so hard to contextualize what that even be like. And you go in the city now, and you look at those buildings, it's like unfathomable to imagine them just crumbling down.
It's insane. It's actually insane. I have friends who have crazy stories though that lived right there. Insane. Like, my friend was pregnant and had to fucking run and jump into a boat, like crazy shit. Like, she still has the clothes with all the soot on it. Like, nuts. Like, what, you know, I mean, people went through so much that day.
Did people shut down in the city, or did they connect? Like,
we connected.
Yeah.
We connected. New York was that next day I remember wearing my I Love New York shirt and just like everyone was like, we were all on the same team that, you know what I mean? We were all New Yorkers. We were all like gonna get through it together.
Do you think that looking back that triggered a lot of addicts to relapse?
Probably, but a lot of people stayed sober too.
So
Because I hear that at meetings. People like talk about 9/11.
and they'll say they were
stayed
sober.
sober.
You relapsed. What
Yeah.
what was the drug of choice that you relapsed on?
I was drinking.
So you just went back to alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, like, of course, like, there was like definitely blow in the picture. If you're drinking, like that was just my thing. Like I would go do that too.
So when you relapse at this point, do you think it's a big deal to yourself, or are you like, it's fine?
So at first I did, but then like literally I remember relapsing and being like in my apartment, like, God, why did I do this? Ah! Like dramatic, like on my knees, naked, like praying to God. And then 9/11 happened 2 days later. And I was like, okay, whatever.
And so what does it look like when 9/11 happens and you're using? Like afterwards?
Yeah, then you just fucking party like nonstop because you're like, what the fuck is happening to my city and what just happened? And thousands of people just died and thousands and thousands and thousands of people's are now fucked up because they don't have their relatives. Like, I don't know. The city it was a nihilistic, weird, very primal partying time. And that was when I met like all these like downtown people too. Like these graffiti writers that Kat always talks about, like all those guys, And that's when I met Adrian, who owned Mass Appeal. And then I started working at Mass Appeal. So it was almost like I was also becoming who I was. I don't know. Like there was some kind of like rebirth, like during that. Not even rebirth. It was almost like a huge growth for me during that time. Even though I was drinking.
And did you know Rob at this point?
I did. I met him in I think March of that following year.
Okay, so how long did you use this time until you
Finally stopped.
stopped?
I stopped at 27.
And what was the catalyst of that?
I had a death premonition.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I was on the train coming home from work. And then, but at this point, I had Kiki. She was 2 years old. I had a business that was very successful.
And when you were pregnant, what do you do when you find out you're pregnant?
Oh, well, it was easy for me to stop drinking when I was pregnant.
That's not always the case for people.
I know it's not.
We've had people on the podcast that has said it's not easy.
For some reason, I just was the hormones, like I was just a happy pregnant woman. Like I really, like I was thriving and living.
Oh, why don't you rub it in?
Sorry, honey.
I'm fucking real uncomfortable right now. I got some heartburn.
No, I did get a lot of heartburn though.
Okay,
Yeah.
the baby's like up my esophagus right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So towards the end, it was
nice.
painful.
Are you
but-
sure you're not like forgetting some things?
No, I
feel like you are.
There was definitely some uncomfortable moments, but emotionally, mentally, I felt so like I had a purpose. I probably felt great because I wasn't drinking and doing drugs.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean? Like that does make sense. Then there was less for me and Rob to argue about because Rob was always on my case about it.
So you're sober during pregnancy.
Yeah.
You have the baby.
Yeah, and then I quickly like was not doing great because I had postpartum.
Which is not talked about enough. So please go off on that.
Oh my God. I was miserable. Like I was having intrusive thoughts of like hurting the baby accidentally. What if I by accident throw the baby down the stairs or trip and then fall on the baby and crush her? I mean, and you're like just thinking you're watching a show and then this pops into your head. It's like horrible.
Or like I was like making oatmeal and like you see the knives and
my
you're like,
God,
what if
I
the
know.
knife? What you're like?
know.
It's so like it couldn't happen. It's like what if the knife like got up and
then
fell out onto the baby?
Yeah,
Like you
just-
have these thoughts that are like really weird.
It's so weird because also you're taking care of a life that is so like dependent on you and like you're completely fully responsible for this totally vulnerable, helpless little thing, you
Yeah.
know? And also I literally went from being a teenage delinquent to then like owning a business and being a mom. And it kind of all hit me after I had her. And I was like, I didn't know how to deal. Like I was like, what is happening? Like this is so much.
What I have like 100 questions about this. What got you out of the postpartum? Was it just like slowly?
I mean, it's hard to say because, I quit drinking when she was 2. I think I still had postpartum depression when she was like 2. Like
Yeah,
I
it
still
can last
like
a long
it
time.
lasted a while, but I also was like newly getting sober. So I didn't. And when I quit drinking, I got like for the first 2 weeks I was okay. And then I had round the clock panic attacks and had to like go on a bunch of medication, which then led me into a whole other, you know, issue, which I was over medicated and medication's great. I'm on tons of it, but like it has to help you.
Right.
You can be on the wrong medication and it is bad. And I was on a lot of wrong medication for a very long time. So I can't tell you when postpartum, but I think the medication was what helped me get out of it too. And just like her getting older and me finally being able to have a life again.
The intrusive thoughts needs to be talked about more because it's not.
No one wants to admit that they've thought about like accidentally killing their baby. You know what I mean?
It's
like
it's wild the things that go through your
Because you know
head.
what's strange is like I think everybody, even if you're not pregnant, man or woman, you
have those.
Like sometimes I'll be sitting around and something crazy will pop in my head. I'm like, that's weird, but you can catch it quicker, I think. But maybe when there's something going on when you're postpartum where you can't catch it as quick.
It's definitely chemical related because I was having them like so badly recently. And then I went on Wellbutrin and it's so much better. And I also had a brain scan done.
Oh, and by Dr. Amen.
Yep. And
I saw that.
They're the ones that told me that Wellbutrin would probably be really helpful. And I fucking went on it and like instantly all the weird negative thoughts that I couldn't get rid of were gone.
But here's the difference with postpartum.
Yeah.
One, you're already in a vulnerable state. And two, there's something that's extra intrusive about the baby being hurt.
Of course.
Because like I could handle it if like I'm like, oh, in the car and I'm like, oh, like I'm going to get in a car accident and my head's going to smash through the window.
Yeah.
But it's different when it's a baby that you're taking care
Yeah,
of.
and it's your kid.
That makes you feel sick.
What I'm
Yes.
saying is it's weird because I think, like you said, all humans have these kind of crazy thoughts. None of us want to admit it, but like, you know, and I think you see those thoughts come to fruition with people that can't manage them, right? And then you see them do terrible things.
Yes.
But something's going on, obviously, postpartum when you have the child that makes those thoughts more prominent.
Yeah.
And harder to control. And I wonder
totally.
if anyone's really done a study on why that occurs. I'm
well,
sure they
not
have.
a lot of people want to talk about it because it's
Nobody wants
it's
to say,
almost
hey,
shameful. I felt like looking back, I felt shameful that I was having these intrusive thoughts. And the second I talked about it on the podcast, all these people messaged me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people have like fucked up thoughts, like what would happen if you put a baby in a microwave, or it's like all the like that's what people.
Yeah, but when you're thinking about your own baby,
sure.
You know, when my niece was born, I had the intrusive thoughts all over again, as if I had given birth, and it was so fucked up.
I think people don't want to talk about it because they don't want to admit that those thoughts come in their head. But there should be more of a study because there's a reason these thoughts are happening. We don't figure it out.
It has to be hormonal. It has to be. We should talk. We need to talk to Dr. Amen about it.
Yeah, he needs
to start doing studies on that.
Yeah, that's a good one to talk about. I think a lot of women have that. Okay, so you're postpartum, you're 2 years in, you start to drink again, and
I started drinking again very quickly, and my life was just. I mean, from the outside, it looked great. I had this huge apartment. I had a daughter. I had a successful business, but I was like fucked up inside. Like I was really miserable, and I was really trying to control the drinking. I was like blackout drinking every time I drank.
What did Rob say?
Oh, he was like, nah. I mean, he would like film me when I got home, and we would argue, and like he would film me to show myself, but also to kind of scare me with like custody things, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, luckily, we're like, you know, that never happened, and I got sober. But I had a death premonition, and it was like. Honestly, like the craziest. It was like God. I don't like saying that like God speaks. God said basically gave me a message or something because like why don't other people get messages or get sober? But I think I was open to it also. And maybe it was just my most inner self being like, this is how you have to survive. You need to stop drinking, you know, like whatever. And maybe your most inner self is God sometimes. But I had a message. I saw my life without me. I saw my parents and my brother and sister, and they were mourning. They were devastated. Their lives were never going to be the same. And I saw Rob and Kiki, and they were like, okay. Rob was like handling it, and like Kier, she wouldn't really remember me because she's 2. And I was like, I'm not living to my birthday this year if I don't stop drinking. And then I didn't take a drink for 10 years.
So that's what snapped you out of it. Out of the rehabs and everything you went through, that premonition snapped you out of it.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah. I mean, then I started going to meetings and like, you know, that kind of stuff. But yeah.
And didn't have a drink for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back so you can talk about what happened with the police officer, because that was wild.
I know.
Like, how did that even happen?
I know, it's crazy because I always like kind of talk about it with a lot of like irreverence and like levity. Like, yeah, I got beat up by the cops. Who cares? Haha, I won 75 grand. But actually, it was like pretty violent, and like being like beat up by like 3 men is like really kind of like traumatizing. But yeah, I was at a club and the club had been let out, and there was like a lot of, it was at the Hammerstein Ballroom, so it's like a huge place with thousands of people, you know. So there was like thousands of kids like getting like let out of this place, whatever. I was like, I think 19 or 20 when this happened. And I was making out with this guy, saying goodbye to him. And all of a sudden he's getting beat up by like 5 police officers. And I had noticed that there were cops kind of trying to clear the street, but I like didn't pay attention too much. They start beating the shit out of him for no reason. Like, no reason. We were just standing there doing nothing. We were kissing. And I had an empty water bottle, a half empty water bottle, plastic. And I just throw it at their direction. It was almost like just an instant, like a reflex. Like wasn't thinking about it. And it hit a cop in the back. And I was like, oh, fuck. And I was like, maybe he didn't notice. He turned around and looked right at me and just lunged at me and fucking clocked me.
Jeez.
Yep. And I spun around and landed on the sidewalk, like half on the sidewalk, which is it's the subway grates are there. So I was half off the sidewalk, and then my upper half was on the sidewalk on the subway grates. And I felt all these people on my back, and I got handcuffed. And then while I'm handcuffed, I had a half ponytail, and the cop grabs my ponytail and slams my head into the ground, the grates. And he goes, see what happens when you fuck with me, you little bitch. And I felt my tooth come out. And they stood me up, and I had been knocked down on the ground so hard that my shoes flew off. So I was barefoot, which that was the most disturbing thing to me, was being barefoot on like the street in New York. I was like, that was like the worst part. I was like, give me my shoes. And I looked at this female cop and I'm like, look what he did to my tooth. And she's like, if that was me, I would have knocked all your fucking teeth out. And I was like, oh, I'm fucked.
So they take you in?
They take me in. A lot of fucked up shit happens when I was locked, like in the cell. Like there was a giant roach, like a giant water bug, and I was screaming. And one of the cops came in and he was like, if you don't stop screaming, I'm going to take all your clothes off.
No way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what did you do?
I was like, I just shut up. And then I said to the guy, because the dude, not boyfriend, but the guy that I liked, whatever, we both got arrested. So he was in the cell next to me. So I could only hold his hand and talk to him. And he was like, that's so fucked up. I can't believe they just said that to you. Don't worry. I'm here. Da, da, da. You know what I mean? Like and then they were acting like their cameras were broken because I had like a black eye, you know, and they didn't want to like take my picture. Then they brought us to central booking. Well, actually they brought in a bunch of people. It was so gross. They brought in a pimp who had like explosive diarrhea in one of the cells next to us. It was horrible. It was honestly really horrible. And me and the guy, I'll just call him John. That's not his name. Me and John was like holding my hand like, babe, this is so gross. I'm like, this is disgusting. Like, this is so nasty. And the pimp was like making all these noises and he had no shame. Oh, he didn't give a fuck. He did not care. Then they bring us all to central booking at like fucking, 8 in the morning or 10 in the morning. And I'm like getting like ready to go in and you have a psych test. They're like, have you ever thought about harming yourself? And I was like, yeah, I guess so at some point. And they're like,
can't say that.
Whoops. They bring me to Bellevue Hospital and fucking handcuff me to a chair in the emergency room of the psych unit and just leave me there. They just leave me there. Like the cops leave me handcuffed. And some crazy person comes in who's like, I'm here for an x-ray. And like the people that work there were like, yeah, sure you are. Don't worry. Just take your shoelaces out of your shoes. And he's
Jesus.
like, no, I'm here for an x-ray of my elbow. And they're like, no, you're not actually. And they're like, miss, you need to get out of here now. And I'm like, I'm handcuffed. I can't get out of here. And then they like they stood in front of me because he started going nuts, and they grabbed him and then they gave him a shot. And then he was like passed out on the gurney. And then finally I went in front of the judge at 2 a.m. And this is on the 4th of July, which I found ironic. But at one point they finally brought me to another precinct after Bellevue, and I was like doing sit-ups, and I was just thinking like, how is this your life, Leah? Like, you need to get it together.
Yeah, but at what point did you realize that the cops also had some accountability to take in this?
So while I was being beat up, people were calling 911 on the cops. When that happens, the Civilian Complaint Review Board gets contacted. They contacted me. Then I knew to get a lawyer. The problem is that I got a lawyer that I think they suggested, and they tried fucking up the whole lawsuit. And I finally got another lawyer, thank God, the day before that it was the last day to sue them.
So the lawyer goes in and says they knocked her tooth out.
Yeah,
they punched her.
You
ended up needing a nose job. Is that correct?
No, that I just got for fun.
Oh, I thought you got one because I thought the cop broke your nose.
No. He didn't break my nose. He just knocked one of my teeth out.
Okay, but on Housewives later, you got that for fun.
Yeah, I just had that for fun.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, listen.
That sounds kind of good though. But yeah, no, I just got it for fun. So we sued them. I won $75,000. I used it. I had already started Married to the Mob, my clothing line. I already started it, but I didn't have any like capital. Like I was just like, getting by on like nothing. I won the $75,000, and what it helped me do was it helped me quit my job, which at the time was working at Rob's store, by the way, and put my full time into the brand. And I bought a computer.
And simultaneously, you're not sober at this point.
I'm not sober.
Okay, so you put the money into your brand.
Mm-hmm.
It grew.
It fucking like it was, I just hit at the right time, the right place. Thank God for my brand though, because like, honestly, that was like my education. That was like my MBA. That was my, I got to learn so much through having this company.
But also, I think what's cool about your brand is it's like you almost content marketed before because you were at the raves, you were hanging out with like the graffiti street artists, like so it made sense for you to launch that, and it was the first ever women's streetwear. Is that right?
I mean, people like get mad at me when I say that, but like
I said it.
but yeah, you said it, so it's fine.
Always take the credit.
Listen, in that genre, it was like, of course, there were female brands that came before me that I looked up to, but when it comes to like streetwear, if you want to like get specific,
Well, I also think it's cool because you're very feminine and beautiful and blonde with
Thank
blue
you.
eyes, and it's almost like the juxtaposition.
Oh my God,
of it all.
It's funny because people would be like, "You're the owner." I'm like, "Yeah."
That's
would
the
like,
best though.
Yeah,
it's like,
I guess. I was like, okay,
yeah,
right.
bitch, I am the owner.
Yeah, motherfuckers, bitch, I elevate this shit. So that's my cop story.
So
thank you, NYPD.
So has your experience with the cops been easier since then?
I have not gotten arrested since then. Yeah, I mean, I haven't been arrested. And look, there were times where, not me specifically, but like I had friends who like we needed the police, and luckily they were good and they were there, but, I think
it was an unfortunate.
It was an unfortunate incident.
I mean, I also think that there needs to be a little bit of I don't even know what the right word is, but when a male cop is dealing with a woman, it's different, I think.
Right. It's like, hi, are you seriously like punching me? Like, what the fuck? And like slamming my head into the subway grates? Like, you psycho. Well, there needs to be also a lot more like mental health evaluations, like for police, like,
There's not enough of that.
They're dealing with a lot of crazy shit. They see a lot of crazy shit every day, so there needs to be a lot more.
The problem with that, like that profession to me is so crazy because it's extremely dangerous, right? You're dealing with, some of the hardest people to deal with in the world.
Yep.
You're trying to use judgment, but like imagine like, you go through the full 8-hour workday just on a normal job and you get burned out. Like imagine that job.
No, imagine you have
I'm not defending all cops. I'm just saying,
of course, you have to look at dead bodies. You have to look at children who've been molested, abused, starved. You have to see just the fucking like lowest shit ever. Like the most horrific parts of the human experience you have to see.
Well, and then you have the public, which is
the public who's like, fuck you, we hate you.
Well, yeah, and you have to perform perfectly all the time. Right.
Can't make any mistakes. It's a very hot topic, and I think that in New York City, we're seeing.
Well, you see it now.
The
other
blowback.
Yeah, of course, and in LA too, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's one of the reasons that we bailed out of there, right? It's however you feel about the police, whatever. That's not but there is got to be some kind of acknowledgement of the danger that exists when there's not policing.
And also, it's like, not like, obviously in every group of people there's going to be some bad people in that group. It doesn't mean the entire group is bad. And of course, we're living in such an extreme type of world, and everything is so polarized that it's like, you know, it's just then all cops are terrible.
Well, I feel like the cop that obviously punched you like that
is
maybe somebody that sucks and maybe shouldn't be a cop, right?
Yeah.
But I feel bad because a guy like that gives the good one such a bad name. And there's a lot of girls too, that go into that profession that want to help and be good.
Yeah. Look, I will say that NYPD, listen, there's plenty of fucked up, like, the union is crazy. They get away with a lot of stuff. There's that code, that's the wall of blue or whatever it's called. Like, you never, you can't call out any of your other cops for doing anything, because then you look bad, so I don't know what it's like in other places, but like, the NYPD, I don't know, I have a
they knocked your fucking tooth out.
I have a weird relationship with them.
It is, though, with every single thing there's good and bad. Like,
yes, of course.
You're not gonna get all good and you're not gonna get all bad. That's kind of like, you're so right. Everyone wants to be so black and white and extreme about it, and it's like sometimes there's a lot of gray.
Yep.
My fear, though, is like the amount of ridicule, especially now that they go through. Like, imagine the crop of people that are going to go into that job at this point.
Who wants to be a cop? Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
So now I fear like we're going to get even worse.
I know,
right? Because it's like going into politics. Like, people say, "Oh, you should go into politics." Like, you'd have to. There's not a number in the world that I would go into politics for, right?
That's the problem. Yeah. That's why all politicians are terrible.
Yeah, so you get people that would, like, rational people that are like, hey, I'm going to go into something else. I'm going to go into finance.
That's
I'm
why
going to start a fucking podcast.
Right, I know,
Like,
yeah.
No.
That's why I like Andrew Yang.
I like Andrew Yang. He's cool.
Gang.
I want to know, after 10 years of sobriety, was that when you were approached by Housewives?
I started drinking again.
Before Housewives?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then was approached.
You were friends with Tinsley? Is that why you were approached?
No.
Different.
Yeah, I had the same facialist as Bethany Frankel. And so Bethany started following me on Instagram because, like, on my podcast that I had years ago, I had this thing called Fuckboy of the Week. And I gave her ex Fuckboy of the Week. And I guess she found out and then started following me because she liked that. And then I started following her and whatever. We're just following each other. We didn't have any kind of relationship. But my facialist called me one day and was like, okay, Bethany Frankel's my client, which I had never known. I've been going to her forever. But
do we need to go to the facialist? You can't talk about a facialist on this podcast and not tell me who it is.
Her name is Ingrid Sung.
Okay.
She's amazing. Go look her up. She's wonderful. So she's like, oh, Bethany wants me to ask you, would you mind if she gives your name to the Real Housewives people? I was like, yeah, sure, but they're never gonna pick me. Like I'm not rich. Like, I'm not from the Upper East Side. I actually can't stand the Upper East Side. I'm like, and then in my like casting thing, I said I'm anti-socialite, and I was like, oh, I'm never making it on that show, but here I am.
So the drinking had nothing to do with the Housewives.
No, but I will say that, like, I don't know, maybe who knows? Maybe I would have, like, quit sooner. Maybe I wouldn't have if it wasn't for the show. Because once I found out I was going to do the show, I was like, oh, fuck, and I'm drinking. This is going to be bad. Like, but I couldn't stop.
When you decided you were going to start drinking and you had the conversation with your daughter, did you know it was going to be a recipe for disaster? Did you think I can control
I really,
this?
truly, like any good alcoholic, was like, had forgotten all the crazy times or bad times and was like, but listen, I was in such a different place, and I had stopped going to meetings, like all those things. Like, I had stopped doing all those things to keep reminding myself of what I am. And I did truly think, okay, let me try it and see if I can do this in a way that's not so harmful. And it works for like a couple months.
Yeah, that's what I always wondered. Does it work for a little bit of amount of time?
But like literally only like a month. And then it was like, I'm drinking so much to the point where I'm puking all over Williamsburg and flashing everyone and, you know, putting shit up my nose. So it's like it went downhill quick.
So when you get on Housewives,
Yeah, I was like, oh,
and everything is filmed,
fuck. Yeah.
what was the moment that you watched Housewives where you were like, oh,
I quit before the show aired.
okay.
You quit the show.
No, I
Or you quit
drinking
Okay.
before the show aired. I stopped drinking on March 31st. The show aired April 2nd.
But okay, so I actually remember you being sober in the beginning. And then we saw you start drinking wine, maybe.
No, because what happened was like I was struggling with drinking. You know what I mean? Like, so maybe in the beginning of the show, I said, I'm not drinking today. But then like I drank, but I'd already been drinking for months before, you know? And then like I drank the entire season. We stopped filming. The pandemic happens in March. I stopped drinking March 31st. And then the show airs April 2nd. Is what I'm trying to say. So it's not like I watched it's not like I watched the show and was like, I'm so fucked up, I need to stop.
Got it. When you were on the show, the Tiki Torch scene's iconic.
Yeah,
it is iconic.
That was a great one.
It's, I mean,
yeah, I have no regrets.
Honestly, I gotta say, I am a real housewife connoisseur, and that scene was like amazing in so many different ways.
Thanks.
The tempo of it,
yeah, it was good.
Like it was so good because I think New York is so used to being like this group of women, and you came in and like threw a bomb on it.
Yeah, I didn't even mean to.
And it was like you're so juxtaposition for the show, and like it's exactly what it needed.
Thank you.
And to see you at her house, that she's so like anal, and all the placemats are out, and like
I know
the straws match like the
here comes Leah.
You know, like the picnic table, and then you came out and just like burned it to the ground.
No, like literally, actually.
What was that like during and after?
So I think I was like really feeling weird about being there. I like didn't like that Hamptons party we went to the night before. It was like very weird. I don't know if you remember. Like I was just like eyes wide shut. Like I felt very uncomfortable. Like I like the Hamptons, but I hang out in Amagansett, not Southampton. It's like a little different, you know? Like I was just like, this is not my type of people. Like this is not who I want to chill with. You know, this is fucking weirdoville. And I was like, it's a pressure cooker when you're in that situation and then drinking, you know, like, so by the time then the tiki torches, I was like, just fuck these fucking tiki torches. Like, I hate these things, you know? Then I was like drinking. And then I was just like, fuck this. Like, this is, I don't know, something just went in my head. And I was like, I need to explode and take my clothes off and throw tiki torches. I don't know. Something came over me. I was wasted. But I also was just like, still like, I hate these tiki torches. I hate this Southampton shit. I hate that party we went to. I just want to fucking like lose it.
Who was the most mad at you besides Ramona the next day?
Honestly, nobody was really mad at me.
They probably liked it because it made a good show.
Probably. Like they're like, oh.
And how did the audience respond when they saw it?
Oh, they loved it. Yeah.
I mean, it's a scene.
I couldn't believe it. Like I was like, whoa, like rewatching it or like watching it. I was like, oh my God.
It was primal.
Yeah, it was exactly. It was very primal. That was like me, very primal. Like the thing is like, this is sometimes how I explain me being drunk. It's like, it's like the primal Leah, you know, but there's all these rules, obviously, that you have to follow in society and, you know, etiquette and whatever, just dealing with people. You're not going to just take your clothes off at a party and just start throwing tiki torches. But like maybe back in the day, like as a cave woman or something, I would have been acting like that.
When you get sober on Housewives, there's like a whole different layer of stuff that you have to go through.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys were dealing with race last season.
Oh, right.
I mean, that was so different than what the audience was used to.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then also you were dealing with your grandmother's death.
Oh God, that was the difficult part for me. Everything else was like whatever.
How did you navigate all of that with the pandemic and COVID?
With the pandemic, I mean, I tried my best. It was hard. I was like trying out different depression medications during that time, and then trying to film, and also being like having to be like almost feeling like I'm trying to get the women to understand Ebony's side, but I'm also trying to get Ebony to chill out a little for the women, and then not knowing like where I stand, and like not really feeling like I had any friends on the show because like Dorinda and Tinsley are gone, and those were the two I was closest with. It was fucked up.
So
and also like I didn't really want to do it. Like I didn't
want to do the show.
No.
Why?
Because I was depressed. Who
So you
wants to
didn't
be
feel like it?
Yeah, who wants to be filming? But it's your job. But it was my second season, so I wasn't like as used to it as maybe someone else would have been, and I couldn't like compartmentalize things, So I was just like, I tried my best.
What's something that would surprise the audience about Housewives that you guys have to do?
Well, I would say that the most surprising thing is probably that like what you don't see is the crazy air shit.
You cannot say that to me.
Sorry.
What? Well, like, what do you mean? What we don't see? How
Like
is
the
it
stuff
crazy?
that's just not
New
kosher for
York is the
television.
best.
Exactly.
New York is the best. So, like, what do you? How can it get crazier?
It just does.
I do feel like your cast is
Michael loves Housewives. By the way.
Has alcohol problems.
maybe you said it, but
For some reason, like New York gets the drunkest.
No,
I don't know.
oh God, this is gonna get me in trouble. I think I always tell Lauren, I think like your cast is the most interesting because it seems like all the people are so different, but they have a ton of depth.
Yes.
Like they're all
complicated.
Like,
They're complicated.
Yeah. It's not like so surface.
I
There's a lot of
actually
stuff
like
going
it
on.
for a different reason than that. I like New York the best because they say straight to the person's face what they're thinking. So with all the other casts, they say it in their confessional.
I know.
You guys say it's like if Ramona's annoying, you'll say it
I think
straight
that's just
to her
that
face.
New York attitude.
I like love
Exactly.
that. That's
I know.
what's so attractive to me about New York.
We're not trying to like look like the best or look like I don't know. Like I feel like with Beverly Hills, like everyone's like,
It's a
our
little too
lives are
polished.
perfect.
Yeah.
Our
Robotic.
everything. Yeah, exactly. Even though I like watching it, but like New York, it's just like fucking we let it all hang loose.
I mean, I like cannot wait for the next season. I have to admit,
whenever that happens.
you guys didn't have a reunion.
Nope.
Why?
Scheduling issues.
Is that really the real reason?
That's the only reason I know.
Also, like with COVID and everything and quarantine.
I mean, I think that it was because like we didn't have great ratings, and then they were like, "What are we gonna do? There's nothing to even talk about," or like, I don't know. This is what I'm assuming.
Did anyone have great ratings with the COVID stuff? It was very awkward to watch.
This is what
with
I
the
think
COVID
that the
stuff,
reason.
right?
Yeah, we couldn't do anything. The New York was shut down. We couldn't even eat in restaurants.
Yeah, it's like manufactured. Like, where do we?
It was
yeah.
horrible.
There's two parts. I think that there was a lot of heavy topics to cover, and I think people, as you know, tune into the show to
they
like
want to escape,
space out, and so it's like escapism, and that the show was like very heavy topics this time.
Some shows need to be produced more than others. Ours does not.
Okay, that makes sense.
If a producer tries to step in and say anything, the women will be like, shut the fuck up, get the fuck out of our scene. We are not doing what you want. We do this our way. That's why I respect these bitches.
When
I think that comes across.
When Sonia said she has a fat pussy,
exactly.
I was like, God, I love this show.
Yeah, I know.
It's like it is not produced. Like
It's not.
That's the thing about New York.
It's not. You know what I mean? There was only 5 of us.
I do like to see who you guys are dating, whether it's a man or a woman.
I wasn't dating it. No one's dating during a pandemic. I mean, I have a crush now, but like I haven't been dating. Like,
why can't you date your boxing coach? He's so cute.
Oh my God, are you crazy?
He's so cute.
You're so funny.
He's so sweet.
He's the best, but he's like my soul family.
I mean, he's special.
He is.
Can he be a housewife though? Like I would like if like he
I would
was
love
like
that.
more on Housewives.
Oh, me too.
You know where I think a lot of these, like, I'm in the content business, obviously. Like, I think a lot of these companies get in trouble is they forget the reason that the audience is there in the first place, and they try to put things into shows that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
You know, I
Meaning,
think
like when
that.
they come into produce, they're like, let you guys be who you actually are. But when you start interjecting weird storylines or things that shouldn't be in there, things that people aren't really looking for in a Housewives franchise,
right,
it goes astray. And it's like the audience is like, what the fuck is this? It's not what I came to watch.
Totally.
it's the same thing. Like, we produce a lot of podcasts here
Right.
under this thing. And I always tell people, like, remember why people are listening in the first place. Some people don't have to have a hot take on everything.
Totally. Oh my
Right?
God. Right. I know.
Right? It's like,
yeah.
it doesn't always, you don't
Completely.
need to comment on
on
everything.
everything. I'm such a big believer in that. Like, because there's some people I'm like, just shut the fuck up.
People
like,
do it to us all the time. They're like, what is your take on this? I'm like, my take is I'm not the guy for the take on that
Right.
particular thing.
Exactly.
Not all the time.
Not everyone needs to have a take.
Yeah.
Just shut the fuck
there's
up.
sometimes better people equipped to handle certain topics.
Or not everyone
Completely.
needs to have a statement.
Not to mention, they
Or that.
forget that the audience doesn't want that take from certain people.
Yeah.
Whatever it
Also,
is.
I'll say this too. Sometimes something happens where I do feel like, okay, I should give my take, but I don't give my take right away. I need space and time to think about my opinion
Yes.
instead of just looking at what everyone else is doing and forming
Yeah.
their opinion.
Like, for instance, I don't have a take on Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. I just don't have a take on it.
Well, he should have put like his back foot. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't have a take on that. I just don't,
you know what? I don't have a take on it either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they can figure it out.
You don't have a take on everything. I like
No.
that. You decided to convert to Judaism.
Yes.
How does that even happen?
It's so interesting. I'm Jewish now, which is so great, and I'm so
Congratulations.
happy. Thank you. I from a young age at Catholic school, I felt like I was praying to God, but I always questioned people. I don't know. I don't mean to then I'm not meaning to be disrespectful at all, but the Jesus thing, I didn't fully I believe he was a person, but there was a lot of things I questioned about Catholicism, and as I got older, I realized I was praying to the same God that the Jews pray to. And I also then read a book called The Red Tent when I was 20. That again, I was like, I feel connected to Judaism. Then I started working in the garment district, and I had business partners who were religious Jews, and there were rabbis there all the time. And I learned about all the holidays and all the traditions and everything, and even asked a rabbi to be my spiritual coach, but he couldn't because he was very Orthodox, and I was dressed slutty, whatever. Then I took a couple years out and started going to a Hare Krishna temple, which is very Jewish of me, actually, in a lot of ways. And then finally, the February before COVID, right, the month before COVID, I was at a dinner party, and I was with a few friends, and I said to my friends, I am converting. I'm doing this. And they're like, are you serious about it? And I'm like, I am. And they're like, we're going to give you rabbis' names. And that was it.
And you love it.
I love it.
That's cool. I think that's
I
a cool
just had
story.
my first Passover.
I also
It was great. Hannah was there.
You're doing too what works for you on your own terms.
And that's the other thing. I think part of it is about reclaiming my life, having my own thing, I don't know. It's just a beautiful religion.
You mentioned mental health earlier.
Mhm.
You went to Dr. Amen.
Yeah.
If someone's out there who's struggling and listening, you mentioned overprescribing.
Yeah.
What are some anything that you use in your toolbox that you think has really helped with anxiety and depression?
Oh my God, I have a lot of things. I've tried it all. Exercise is such a huge part of it. Getting your
Boxing with maybe your boyfriend.
right? Boxing with my future husband. No. Yes, boxing. I actually started boxing when I first got sober in 2009. Yeah, finding an exercise routine or a new sport that you can pick up and do, but those natural endorphins are no joke. I do a gratitude list every morning or night depending, and I send it. I have a person that I text it back and forth to. I meditate, which I started doing. That's kind of a recent thing. And that I was doing for anxiety, and it really fucking works. Then I stopped doing it for a week, and then I started feeling weird, and I'm like, all right, let me go back and do it. I have an app, the Sam Harris app, not to plug him, but whatever. That's what I use. He's great. Exercise, meditation, therapy. And also you have to advocate for yourself with these doctors, because every doctor, you can go to 5 doctors and they're going to give you 5 different medications that they think you should be on. So if something is not working for you, of course you have to give it a week or 2. But if you're feeling worse than before and they keep trying to give you more of it, do not fuck that. because I've lost like 7 months out of my life doing that with the doctor. You have to advocate for yourself.
Be your own guru.
You have to be your own fucking guru too. You can't just listen to everyone else.
I mean, there's some incredible doctors, but I think it's valid in that profession to also say how much we don't know yet.
Exactly.
Still.
Well, because every brain is different. Every brain is dealing. Oh, you know what? I actually recently I'm doing this gene thing where you take a test, they swab your cheeks, and then they tell you which depression or anxiety or mood stabilizer you should be on. Even though I think I'm on a good combo right now, but I'm making sure all my.
That's the other thing. It's smart to test, smart to do your blood, smart to do your genes, your hormones, like all of that stuff, because we're all made up differently. And that's why I think so many people have such a hard time accepting a one size fits all approach when it comes to medicine.
Right.
Because something that may work for you may not work for Lauren or me.
Exactly. And also, and I talk about this in the book, going to the mental hospital was like the best thing I ever did, because when I was there, well, first of all, the doctor there, the head of the place, took me off all this medication that I was on. And then I also saw the difference between what I have, which whatever, I don't like, I'm supposedly bipolar too, but I don't like labels because I feel like they like are like hurtful and harmful sometimes. But the difference between what I had and then some other people in the hospital had was like they couldn't tell the difference between reality and delusion, and luckily I can. And I realized in that moment that there were things in my power that I could do to keep me and my mental health in a good place. Some stuff is out of my control, but there are some things that are in my control, like who I surround myself with, what kind of relationships I get into, what kind of men I have sex with, what I eat, when I decide to go to sleep, how much I exercise. There's all these things that I can do. And am I still going to have to deal with my depression and anxiety and whatever bipolar 2 issues I have? Yes. But there are certain things that will make it a lot better, and they're in my power.
That's a great note to end on. But before you go, I have the main question. Can you and Kat Marnell start a podcast together? Please.
Are you guys going to do it for us?
Yes.
If you make that call,
please,
we'll do it.
You two together.
Because hold on.
It's chaos theory.
Me and my sister tried to do a podcast and sell it to you guys, and we were...
You tried to sell it to here?
I think so. I think I had a meeting with... I think I had a Zoom meeting with two
now you can talk
people.
To Michael.
And they were like, no. And it's a dope fucking concept.
I wonder who that was. I wasn't there.
Fire them. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, okay, they're fired. Get me their names. They're demoted or fired.
I'm totally kidding.
We need a chaos theory podcast.
What if in like a week you're like, oh shit, those people got fired. They're out of a job.
No,
they're on the street.
I don't want.
I'm just kidding. It's not going to happen.
I don't want
chaos
fired.
theory podcast. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
with you, your sister, and Kat.
Well, listen, I can do 2 podcasts. One with my sister, which is called Mental Verse, and then one with Kat that's called Chaos Theory.
Please.
I'm totally into it.
How to murder your life with chaos, a side of chaos theory. Fucking the rats that are on her. She's talking about the cockroach, the roach. The roach can make an appearance.
I know. The roach.
The pimp that's shitting.
The pimp that with the explosive diarrhea. I mean,
you get the pimp with explosive diarrhea, and we get a contract.
I will pitch the podcast. I'm telling you, I would die for a podcast. Bring Julia Fox on.
Oh yeah, of course.
I heard you know her too. Like get everyone on. Get the street artist on.
Let's go.
I'm telling you.
Let's fucking go.
It would be a chaotic.
But we need a new. This would be. We need a New York office though.
Listen, that's on my.
It's on the way.
Yeah. It's funny is
hurry the fuck up, Michael.
Well,
I need them to do a podcast immediately.
Obviously, like LA was the first, and then we had our ambition there, but then the pandemic hit, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pump the brakes.
Yeah.
And then selfishly, I was like, I just need to get the hell out of LA, so we came here. But it's on the horizon.
You can have Luann on.
You know why? Because I still say this confidently. New York City is still my favorite city in the world.
Thank you. Mine too.
And I think it's going to come back just the same, if not stronger. I don't think the same for LA. I'm sorry. Like, and I grew up in California, but I think New York will always be New York because of the people.
Exactly.
But it might take some time. They got to get the crime under control in both places.
Oh my God, it's crazy. But no, New York, even with all the crime, even with the taxes, even with everything, I'm like, I'm not leaving here. This is where I want my daughter to grow up. This is where I want to be.
let's bring it full circle
listen,
and say
the
that Real
taxes-
Housewives is going to come back in New York full circle too.
Yes, and of course it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I need
It's coming
that.
back. Don't worry.
I mean,
I miss New York. I've been there in a while.
It has been a while.
Married to the Mob, where can you get your clothing line, your book? We're going to do a giveaway for your sweater called Bitch, I'm Elevated.
No, bitch, I elevate the
Bitch,
shit.
bitch,
Bitch, I'm elevated. I
it's
like that
pregnancy
too.
brain. Bitch, I elevate the shit. What color is the sweater?
I think there's a tie-dye one. I can't, yeah. There's a few different colors.
Can we do a
Options.
signed copy of your book and a tie-dye?
Absolutely.
Bitch, I elevate this shit.
Yes.
That was such a good line.
Yes.
Oh. All you guys have to do is follow.
Yes. At Leah Mob.
Okay. And married to.
And then at Married to the Mob is my streetwear line, and then there's Happy Place, which is my sustainable sleepwear line, which we have amazing robes. I'm gonna send you guys stuff. You're gonna love it. And there's like baby blankets and shit.
Send me like an extra large right now so I can just wrap it around the stomach.
You're gonna be very cozy in it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Where can everyone find all of your stuff?
So
Pimp yourself
you can
out.
just go on my Instagram, and there's literally links to everything. So at Leah Mob on Instagram is probably the best place to go.
I loved your book, you guys. I would definitely recommend it to everyone who is listening. There's a lot of stuff that we didn't even talk about on this podcast. If I don't see you on Housewives next season, I'm going to no, they need to come talk to me.
Okay.
Or you need your own podcast.
Well, we're doing a podcast, regardless.
Leah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.